And getting down to it here, next we have the summary section. This is going to tie all those pieces together. We're going to look at their overall ability of their assets to last throughout the projection. So we can see a quick summary of their goals, things like other income, retirement income, taxes, retirement analysis saying that their assets in this case may last through life expectancy. We can see a graphical view of how their capital is projected to change over time. So in this case, we can see it does last through last life expectancy, even though it does start a downward trend once they get into their late 70s here. We can also see their annual expenses compared to that total capital available. Then we get to the retirement capital estimate. So this is a great report, one of the key reports available in golden years. This report works really nicely with the cash flow illustration that we saw back on B7. So this report, where it looks purely at scheduled income sources versus expenses and shows you a cash flow shortage or surplus, this report is going to essentially show you the solution to those shortages. So if we look here, you'll notice we have no more shortages. Surplus is still displayed, but for those cases where they didn't have as many scheduled income sources as they would need for their spending requirements, this is going to show the distributions that the client would be making. So distributions from things like investment accounts and their retirement accounts. And essentially it would continue to make those distributions as needed throughout the projection. And you can see how that total account value changes year by year through the projection. Again, that audit trail is a great feature to use to break down any of the numbers that you would need more information on. So next we get into the Monte Carlo. So F3, again, fixed case. We saw that they were making it to their last life expectancy with about $100,000 to spare, so not a big cushion there, which is going to be illustrated for us on the Monte Carlo. So we can see the blue line. This is their results using that fixed rate of return that we just saw in F3. And then we can see those little gray lines, which represent a sample of those 10,000 simulations that are run using the random rates of return. So you'll notice the fan of results here, and the original retirement capital estimate, they ended up with $100,000. That was that fixed case with the fixed rates of return. The worst case of those 10,000 trials, we can see they run out quite earlier, is 0. The average is about $500,000. The maximum, so at least one of those 10,000 trials, they ended up with about $5.4 million. The percentages on the right-hand side, people like to take a look at these. The percentage of results above 0 is 59%. That's at that final life expectancy, and that's the number of those trials that never hit 0. So about 60% of those trials were successful, which means the other 40% did run out of money and they did hit 0 before life expectancy. It also gives you 3 other ages, so you can see how that percentage changes throughout the projection. In little teeny font here, you can also see the standard deviation that's used. So you can see the portfolio rate of return, the standard deviation, and then you can see what the 95% of the rates when it's using those rates of return will fall between when it's varying those rates. So in this case, negative 2.74% and a high of 16.39. The program will go out a total of 5 standard deviations, but this represents the first 2, which makes up 95% of the rates that it will use. Okay, so next we have a net worth statement. This is a very handy report. So where we saw on retirement capital estimate F3, they ended up with $100,000. That was their savings and investments and retirement type assets. It didn't include personal property, rental real estate, insurance, cash values. So we can see here how their total net worth is changing, including their total liabilities, of course. So at last life expectancy, given their property and the like, they have closer to $1 million. There's also some supporting detail to that net worth, which is going to list out the details that make up their total personal property. The last item for this summary section is the withdrawal rate reports. And this is going to calculate the net withdrawal rate each year. So it's going to look at their total funds available, less any withdrawals that they're taking for things like RMDs or shortages. And you can see how that withdrawal rate changes every year of the projection. There's also a graphical view of that. So if we look at the bottom here, this shows them the moving average withdrawal rates. So you can see it as a 1-year, 3-year, and 5-year, and 10-year average range. So we can see their average withdrawal rate over a 10-year period is about 7.84%. So that's the summary section. This is a great section to focus on as it ties all those pieces together for the client.